Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.
That animation reminds me of the shark scene in Pet Detective. Ah, sharks. An asset so dangerous, so exciting, so integral to the stunt person that they just had to reuse it, even though in this particular situation it didn't make sense. That recycling of content, as well as the fact that both Joe Danger games are on the smaller side and are mechanically very similar, is why we're doing them in one jump. Did it mild punishment? You play as the titular Joe Danger, the world's most determined stunt person. Although in all fairness, he was born with an advantage. He's a cartoon. That really helps. The first game's story claimed he had to stop because of an injury. What disaster could have possibly befell him? You can take all of his punishment and respawn immediately. Plus, the physics are kind of forgiving at times. Well, at least you're not getting points for this. And does Joe oil his back or something? Yes, it is very easy to be a cartoon. First things first, perhaps obviously the gameplay is the meat of this game. It's just stunts. On the first one seemingly dirt bike only, but on the second one you're doing stunt work for the most action-packed movie ever. So you're going to use more modes of stunt portation. It also means that this movie will almost certainly not make sense. It goes from indie to Bond to Chips to an experimental spin on Kingpin. And because of the movie propriety, it makes the game more stimulating than the first one. Adds a bit more spice to the objectives you do in each level that earn you stars. That's the same in both games as well, except the second one doesn't overdo it. Plus it's easier, lighter, and somehow faster, I believe. Or at least feels that way. Joe Danger 1 is more demanding and single-minded. It has more levels with more objectives to encourage replay. Find hidden stars, a time trial star, complete the level in one combo, collect things, hit your mark. But arguably it's a drier experience. But perhaps a purer one. Just you and a motorcycle. On some levels you can earn a Pro Gold medal, which unlocks different costumes, a whole lot of skins in Joe Danger 2. All 9 Team Fortress 2 classes make an appearance as well. Just get all the stars for a level in one go. Frustrating yet satisfying, but it's just that the first game uses it not only to encourage mastery, some of the standard stars can force it from you, for even less reward. So the first game is definitely more hardcore, draining. And to further emphasize the difference between the two games, almost inherent in using different scenarios in Joe Danger 2 means it has more visual variety as well. Once again and yet another way, this game is more stimulating. There's not much of a graphical difference. These games were released within a short period of one another. Most of what you'd see in one is a western-themed stunt land. Fair enough, traditional stunting grounds. The games look nice. A lovely 2.5D cartooniness. Well, actually technically 3D. You can change lanes. In these games' backgrounds, you may see sentient pyramids, comedic ads, and spectating pool noodles. Plus, because he's a stunt person, you'll see a lot of stars. Perhaps the most characterful thing about our hero, apart from his bulbous nose and wardrobe. Musically, it's pretty good too. In the first one, you'll mostly hear funky 70s game show music or something along those lines. And in the second one, they added scenario tracks. And here's roundabout where the distinctions between the games end. Pure gameplay fun. As said, sometimes the physics are generous and encourage radness. So rad! Absolute punishment. You boost to add speed and mid-air mobility, and tricks, wheelies and flips recharge it. And you can also hop and duck to avoid getting brained by beams or caught in giant mousetraps. I've never played the Trials series before, but I'm guessing these games are like them, except more ACME and less realistic. Whee! Wile E. Coyote never stopped to smell the roses like this. So this game fulfills our need for air, speed, as well as punching 80s dirt bike villains. Apart from that, you can sate your creativity a bit by creating your own levels. Produce a lovely challenge or some nausea. And there are puzzle levels, where you're given a limited number of placeable features to complete the level with. The game also has Samescreen Multiplayer for up to 4 players on Joe Danger 2 and seemingly 2 players on Joe Danger 1. But but unfortunately it's not controller flexible. But at the very least it allowed my Xbox controller keyboard combo for 2-player action. And while the game's employed slightly differently, ultimately you'll be racing against each other. There isn't really a story, this game is more just uncomplicated fun at its foundation, and you can build your skills on top of that to get the gold, if you feel inclined to put so much effort into it. Apparently I completed 62% of Joe Danger 1's career mode, earning 22 out of 25 of the gold medals. And that took me about 11 hours, maybe 10. I mean, it just got too hardcore, especially getting those gold medals. But Joe Danger 2 on the other hand, I 100%ed, all 30 medals earned. And that only took me about 6 hours. So altogether both games took me 16 hours to complete. Or in Joe Danger 1's case, had my fill of anger. And both games are cheap on Steam, as they cost 159 Rand full price, 31 Rand 80 on sale. That's 3 Rand 18 cents per hour of gameplay for one, which is pretty good, and 5 Rand 30 cents per hour of gameplay for two, which is okay, it's doable, it's not great, but both of them are included in a bundle. That costs 269 Rand full price, and 53 Rand 80 on sale. That's 3 Rand 37 per hour of gameplay for both of them together. So you can get the challenge, and thus more bulk, from Joe Danger 1, combined with the sizzle of the shorter, but probably better, Joe Danger 2. That's not a bad option. And to download, the first game takes up 636.72 megabytes on the hard drive, and the second entry takes up 818.52 megabytes on the hard drive. So both games have small download sizes, and altogether, they take up almost 1.5 gigabytes. Not the best download, but not the worst, especially if you complete more of the first game than I did, or get in a little bit of multiplayer. And both games work on the Warhorse, but in a strange way. Both do experience a heavy drop in frame rate there, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it lag. It didn't feel like there was any delay or latency really. I don't know whether that's true or it's down to the gameplay at hand that just felt that way. During the test, I even completed a pretty fast level with both stars, so I felt it was quite playable in this state. So the game probably is easy to run, but here are the specs just in case, to really play it properly. But I do believe there is some frame rate drop, even on my gaming PC, when it comes to the multiplayer. For Joe Danger 1, but still playable enough to have fun with friends. Stereotypically, the game is kid-friendly mostly. There only is cartoon violence after all. If a rat trap snapping on you is perhaps an inherently violent occurrence, but there are only two real concerns in this realm. For me during initial play, because of the speed and the angle, I did experience some eye itch. I do believe my eyes did adjust, but it did take a little bit of time. And even then I don't know if that's exactly healthy. Once again, I'm not a doctor. Secondly, of the costumes you can unlock, 2 of them may offend some people. The one costume is seemingly based on Geronimo, but when you account for the message you receive when you unlock him, maybe it's more of a cartoonish amalgamation? And the second one, design-wise, I believe may be fine, to an extent at least, but there's a more obvious thing I have to mention. The costume's name has the E word in it, so please take this data, insert it into your moral compasses. And as said, the game does have Samescreen Multiplayer, but unfortunately it's not controller flexible, but does allow an Xbox and keyboard combo. I did test it with some friends, for a short game, but it was a bit rough going. Perhaps not the best game to get thrown into, especially from that angle, sharing it with multiple people. The game has nice, colorful, cartoony, 3D visuals. The first game gets lovely in ACME, if it does get a bit samey, and then the second comes to the rescue with a bunch more scenarios, for visual variety. It has fun stunt jumping action, and it's fun tilting to keep the wheelie going, and it's fun to just narrowly avoid obstacles by switching lanes at speed. If failing that is probably the prime reason you get angry while playing this game. It's fun to clear the different objectives, at least within reason, getting the gold medals, unlocking fun costumes. Chasing those objectives encourages mastery and replaying levels. It gives speed and air. Radical! And once again, just fun. On the maybe side, this game essentially has no story, and Joe Danger the movie is arguably more stimulating, with more variety, and has a more forgiving pace. That's probably why I actually completed it, and in half the time than I spent on one. But Joe Danger 1 is more focused, involves more grinding. In order to get all the stars, it's more hardcore, with less visual variety and one vehicle throughout. It's a more singular experience, but there's an argument to be made here that it brings the challenge, a more in-between way of playing the game. When you have time, work on this level you haven't completed yet. It's not like playing this game piecemeal will detract from some sort of story or quest or anything. I actually feel like both games excel at different things, and one picks up the slack for the other. Although yes, 2 is better. On the con side, Joe Danger won. As mentioned, the hardcore nature of it. In particular, I'm talking about the fact that some levels have a lot of stars. And to get them all, usually you will have to replay the level. And that can be grating in particular when we're talking about exploration objectives, collecting particular items, because these levels can be quite big. And since some of the objectives involve completing the level in one single combo, or within a certain time, that requires yet another playthrough of the level. And at times that can just feel like busy work. And they can take long to complete, you kind of counteract the fun by going slower to look around, and this burden gets stacked on top of the frustration you already feel for some of the more difficult tasks. Come on, play it! Joe is not just the world's preeminent stunt person, he's also a master of leg day. He can get that unicycle up the loop-de-loop.
Choip, choip, choip. Choip, choip, choip.